Alrighty folks, I'm working on a GE XL44 gas stove today, and I want to show you a couple of issues that happen with these igniters that you can fix yourself and save a bunch of money. Okay, first, before you start working on it, please unplug the electrical, and if you're not comfortable with the gas being on, there's a valve coming out of the wall, gas valve, that you can turn off so that no gas is coming to the stove, if you feel most comfortable with that. So again, it's a GE XL44. That's a generic model. The actual model number of your stove you can locate on this particular stove down here. You remove the drawer, the bottom drawer, and it'll show up right there. If you turn your stovetop on, gas stovetop on, and it goes click, 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 and it won't light, there are some common problems that you can look at and fix yourself. So here we go. First, remove the cap. This is called the cap. Then remove the base. This is the base. Here's the little igniter right there. And that's what we'll be working on. That, and then the base as well. Okay folks, again, you turn the stovetop on, click, 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 nothing happens. Look first at this igniter. It's a burner igniter or electrode. What can happen is, and often does, these little igniters get a lot of grease and food particles or gunk built up around them from cooking. That buildup on it, grease, food particle, inhibits the ability for this to spark properly. So the very first thing I would do, and I'd recommend, is if your stovetop is not sparking, it's not lighting, I'd look at this first. I'd remove the cap and the base and then take a look at it. What I do first is I've cleaned these up. So the story behind this stove is I got it off of Craigslist for $50 and didn't even check to see if it worked, because I pretty much knew that if it had a problem I could fix it myself, so I just bought it. It's a nice little stove. So the first thing you do, give it a nice cleaning with some denatured alcohol. Food, grease, particles, get all that off. And the story with denatured alcohol is this: it has a high flash point, and all that means is that it dries really quickly when applied. So you clean it with this, and by the time you get to using the sandpaper, which is what we'll do next, it'll be nice and dry for you. So you clean that up. Then you take, I have some abrasive cloth here, same thing, sandpaper right there. You just want to make sure it's not too coarse. Lightly start sanding that metal tip on this spark igniter. You want to make sure you're not too aggressive, because you don't want to pit that metal. You also don't want to crack or break this insulator, this ceramic insulator here. Were you to do that, you'd have to get a new spark igniter. So just gently sand the metal part, tip there. I've already done it on mine. I just thought I'd show you this video, save you some money. Sand, sand, sand all the way around. Even with this sandpaper, same thing. Just sand it. Not too aggressive. Just want to make sure you have a clean surface on that metal tip. Then just bring that sandpaper up toward you, clean those edges. Once that's all cleaned off, I use the vacuum cleaner to clean off the grit. Okay, then again, denatured alcohol. Make sure it's clean. So you should look at that tip. If it's got no debris on it, no grease, you're good to go. Another issue that happens and causes the burner to not light, again, just hearing the click, click, click sound and no ignition, no lighting, is this little guy, which is the base. There's a port right there that I'm hoping you can see. I'm covering it up with my glove. Let me get a toothpick. It's right there. And I'll move my glove. You'll see light going through. Right there. That gets filled with grease and food particles too. So the igniter this little guy could be doing its job in sparking, but the spark can't reach the gas, which is inside here, and cause the burner to ignite or light, because this is filled with grease and food particles. So you want to clean that out. The way I clean it out is either with a toothpick, back and forth, or a dental tool. I typically use dental tools for things like that. You also see on the other side, there she is, that same port or hole. Clean that out with a toothpick. And after you've got the grease and food particles removed, you can take denatured alcohol and clean that little port again, right there. And on top, I would just put some denatured alcohol right there and use a toothbrush and go back and forth and clean that little port. I'll tell you, when I bought the stove, what I did was I removed these bases and the caps, and I put them in a plastic dishpan, and I sprayed oven cleaner on them. It got them really nice and clean. The ports were plugged up quite a bit, so I've already unplugged them. So you can do that as well. And I'll tell you, if you have one burner that's not working and it's caused by debris and grease on this, or food particles on this igniter or in this port right there, I would clean them all. So you won't have the problem with the rest. It's just regular maintenance. You take care of things and they'll take care of you. So the first thing I'd do is, if you turn on your oven or your stovetop and it doesn't ignite or light, is I would remove the burner cap and the burner base, and I would check and make sure this is clean, nice and clean. Then you have that issue out of the way. I would also clean the port. Once you do that, if you put the base back on and the cap and it's not lighting, what I would look to next is the igniter itself. The electrode or spark igniter perhaps is not working properly, and one of the things that causes that is the ceramic insulator, which is this white thing you see, it's ceramic, can crack, and if it cracks, it won't do its job. It won't light, or it'll be a really weak spark. It just likely won't light. Okay, so now we'll move on to taking the spark igniter out. I'll show you how to do that so that you can replace it yourself. Alrighty folks, so now what I'm going to show you is how to lift this gas stovetop. First, you remove the caps and the bases, set them aside. Next, mine are already loose. There are some screws. Right here. See that one? And that one. Each burner will have screws. Mine has one at each burner. You could have 2, 3, whatever the case. You have to remove these. So what that is a Torx screw head right there. And this bit, it's like a little star. Let me see how close I can get it. You see that? That's a Torx bit right there. You want to remove these screws. And that's what I'm going to do now, before you try to lift this stovetop. After you remove the caps from each burner and the bases, and remove the screws at each base, now what you want to do is either use 5-in-1 tool. There's many type tools you can use, but I like the 5-in-1. You can use a putty knife too, but I like this. There are some clips located at each end of the stove, about 2.5 inches center from each end of the stove. You want a paper towel to put the tool up against, lay the tool up against, so that you don't damage the stove itself. So here we go. You push the clips in. See how I'm pushing that in? You push them in to release the tension. There you go, it lifts up. Same with this guy over here. There you go. Now, you'll be able to see the the clips, hopefully. Ooh, there you go. Let me point them out. There's a clip. And there's a clip. So you've just released those to release the stovetop. Bring the stovetop up. There are some arms that extend right under here. Get a flashlight so you see them. Right here. They're little stands that keep the stovetop up for you. Some are longer, mine are short. So what I'm going to do, because I want it to stand up, is I'm going to use a piece of wood. There you go. I'm going to use this piece of wood and wedge it somewhere that's safe for the stove, which is right there. So that just brings the stovetop up higher, easier to work. We're going to remove the keeper now from this spark igniter. We're going to push it back with a screwdriver. Just protect this. I'm going to protect mine because it actually works. If yours isn't working, I guess it doesn't really matter. So use a screwdriver to work it off, that keeper. See it coming off right there? Just ease it off. Once it gets to a certain point, you can use the needle nose pliers to get the rest of it. There you go. There's the keeper. This spark igniter is now free. So you can either replace it from the top or you can replace it from the bottom. So what you do, it's just easier to show you here. What you do is you grasp the insulator, spark igniter, give it a good hold, pull the wire right off. You can either then put the spark igniter through the top and put your new one in place, like this. Goes right through. Put the new one in place. Or you can do it from underneath. So if you want to do it on top, you put this through, put the wire through, attach the wire to the new spark igniter up top, and bring it back down. But for purposes of showing you how to do this, which I'm sure you've caught on, is just do it from the bottom. Grab the insulation right there, the insulator, and push that right on. Push the wire on, and there you have it. You see how that is? Now, it's time to put the keeper back on. And to do that, I would use a screwdriver to ease it on. And be gentle, you don't want to break the ceramic insulator around that new spark igniter. So just ease this on a bit. Back and forth, work it back and forth until it starts to go on. And use the screwdriver, protecting the insulator, start pushing that keeper on. There you go. Back and forth, each side. You get it in place. And there you go. The keeper's in place. Doesn't move. Now the spark igniter doesn't move. That's how easy it is to replace those. I will say that when you put the keeper on, when you put the spark igniter in, make sure the flat part is facing the interior of the stove, because that's the way it was. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just replaced your own spark igniter and saved yourself a bunch of money. Make sure that keeper's secure. Put the stovetop back down, put the screws back in. We'll do that in just a minute. And now all you have to do is replace the screws, put them back in, the bases, and the caps. But what I wanted to show you is what I do. I spray a little bit of silicone in a little container and use a Q-tip, put some silicone on that screw before I replace it. And the reason I do that is if you need to get into the stove again, it'll be easier. So you just put the screw in there, tighten her up, I just use this as a little manual driver here. And of course, before I ever put the base and cap on, I'm going to tighten that. Put the base on, the cap on, and you are done. You have fixed your own stove and saved yourself a boatload of money. I hope this video helped you, and I will see you guys next time. Happy DIYing.